What role do our emotions play in the blueprint of our ideal life? Hi, I'm Anika, and this is Rewrite Your Story. Today is episode 17, and this is part 3 of the 12-part series that we've been covering on breaking down our life into 12 categories, where we're taking a deep dive into each of them to define our premise, our vision, our purpose, and our strategy for each of those categories so that collectively we can design the blueprint of the ideal life that we want to live and love. Today's category is emotion. So the emotional category is a critical category, and we're going to talk this through over the next few minutes. So, how many of you have found yourself in a situation where you think or you say to yourself, I'm in a conflict of heart and mind? How many times have you found yourself in a situation where you feel like you've got this logical reasoning on one side, but then you've got this emotional feeling, this intuition, this gut, or this hunch on the other side? There may be times that you follow your logical reasoning, and then there are times that you might follow that intuitive feeling. This feeling are signals from our body, giving us indications of where we want to be or where we want to actually go. This is our body wisdom. You'll remember in our episode yesterday, in part 2 of this 12-part series, we tackled the intellectual category, where we spoke about how we can feed our mind with the knowledge and the wisdom that we desire to achieve the intellectual capabilities that we want to achieve for our ideal version of our life. Emotions, on the other hand, are our innate intelligence. We already have them within. We don't have to feed it into our body. It already exists. The difference, however, between the intellectual intelligence and the emotional intelligence is the emotional intelligence moves faster than the intellectual intelligence. Think of a situation where you find yourself in the outdoors and you're suddenly caught by surprise by the sight of a snake. What's the first thing that you're probably going to do? You're probably going to turn around and run away. You're not going to stand there and logically try and figure out what's the best way to either catch the snake or get past the snake or try and negotiate with the snake, right? Your emotions are going to take over before any logical thinking even begins, and you're going to take action. That's what emotions do. Emotions are calls to action. There's a poster, the yellow one behind me, which I keep up here as a constant reminder of this. It says, you must listen to your heart and follow it, or it will find a million ways to tell you that there is something missing. We've got to listen to our heart. We've got to listen to that intuition. Having said that, not all actions that our emotions indicate to are right for us. Some of those actions taken in a moment of impulse, taken with following our gut or our intuition, bring out some of the most amazing outcomes for us. Some others maybe result in regrets. So how do we decide when to follow the heart and when to follow the mind? How can we ensure that the two work together instead of being in conflict? Depends on the situation. If we can be conscious of our emotions, understand where they come from, be able to use them in a healthy debate with our logical reasoning, then we can align both our heart and our mind to take sound actions towards the desired outcomes and better decisions that we make for ourselves. Now, many of us struggle with accepting, understanding, or embracing our emotions. Sometimes because it's just too painful. Sometimes it's because we come from backgrounds or upbringing where it wasn't very conducive to being open about what we feel. It wasn't probably very supportive of expression of the emotions that we feel. Over time, what tends to happen though is suppressing emotions gives them more power. Yes, emotions can be your friends and they can be your enemies. They'll be your friends when you acknowledge them, when you understand them, when you embrace them. But they will be your enemies if you choose to ignore them. By suppressing them, we give them more power to grow and then show up unannounced, uncontrolled, uninvited, and unregulated. Feeling them, understanding them, gives us the power to manage them better. They're just like babies. Babies cry and shout when they're not getting their attention, when they want something, when they want us to pay attention to them. If we ignore them, they scream and shout and cry even louder. It's exactly the way emotions work. Think of emotions as babies. We have got to acknowledge and understand them. And we have the power to create emotional states consciously for ourselves. We actually do this regularly on our day-to-day living, but probably don't pay attention or notice or acknowledge it. Let's think about some of these instances that you may be able to relate to, or you have something similar that happens in your day-to-day pattern. Is there a wonderful spot that you've got on your balcony or in your garden or some corner of your house where you like to enjoy your morning cup of chai in solitude by yourself because it's a peaceful moment for you? That is your me time. Is there a song that sits in your memory and you play again and again and again because it uplifts your spirits anytime that you play it and fills up your heart with joy? Are there photos or memories that you like to reminisce that bring joy back to you and make you feel wonderful and better about yourself? Is there a hobby or an activity like painting or music or gardening? Or perhaps it's the time that you devote to a worthy cause that fills your heart with happiness. These are all conscious patterns that we have actually put into our day-to-day patterns, our day-to-day living, where we are creating those emotional states for us. The morning chai brings us peace. A song brings us joy. A hobby or an activity brings us happiness. We are creating these emotional states for ourselves. How about some of those other emotions? Can we be more conscious about them? Can we be more proactive about our emotions by doing the things that we know will put us in the desired state of emotion instead of only being reactive to situations when they happen to us? Now, I'm not saying we can preempt situations. What I am saying is be conscious of what kind of emotions we want to come out in different types of situations. Having said that, there are major events that happen in our life which are way out of the peripheral of our daily lives or something that we can control. These are events or situations that cause high states of emotion for us, like the loss of a loved one or a physical accident. These are traumatic events, and they will override any emotional control that we may have for some time. But for the most part, as far as our daily living is concerned, we can create the recipes of the emotions that we want to have and avoid those that we don't want in our lives. Our emotions have a direct relationship with the intellectual category that we spoke about just yesterday. When we don't understand our emotions, we suppress them. We don't acknowledge them. And what happens is we start leaning towards the negative emotions that we have. Think of emotions as a scale. If you've got positive on one side, negative on the other side, which side would you rather be on? While the answer may be the same for everyone, the process, the journey, the path can be yours. When we lean towards the negative side of our emotional scale, we get irritated, we get frustrated, we get anxiety, we have fears, we get depressed. If you are in this state of mind, what kind of impact is going to come out on the decisions that are even taken with a logical mind, either about your personal life or your professional life? Taking logical decisions under stress can also lead to undesired outcomes. And staying on the negative side of the emotional scale will not just affect those decisions that you take intellectually, but they will also have a physical impact on our bodies. They cause stress for us. They affect our heart. They affect our blood pressure. They affect us psychologically. Our relationships get impacted, personal world as well as the professional world. We don't enjoy being with ourselves. We don't enjoy being with others. Our relationships, our behavior, our presence in front of others gets impacted. So, how can we create those emotional states consciously for us so that we stay more and lean more towards the positive side of the emotional scale rather than the negative side? We're going to use the Lifebook's PVPS model again, just as we have on the first two categories and as we will on the remaining categories, to ask ourselves questions that can help us define the emotional intelligence that we want to have, that can help us visualize what kind of guide and support do we want to give to our logical reasoning from our emotional intelligence so that we can create better outcomes for ourselves. So we start on the PVPS model with defining our premise. So what do you believe about the role that your emotions play in your life? Do they lean more on the negative side? Do they lean more on the positive side? Do you have a healthy relationship with your emotions? Do you understand where they come from and why they occur at a given situation or a particular type of event? What kind of control or management would you like to have on your emotions? Do you want to be more conscious about the why behind your emotions? Do you want to feel more empowered to create the emotions that you want in your life? These are some of the questions that came up for me and helped me put down the premise on having emotional intelligence in my life. I hope that they're helpful to you. Let me know if they're not. Drop me a line in the comments below, and I'll walk you through some more thought-provoking questions. Vision. What kind of questions can we ask ourselves to define our vision? Here we want to talk about the kind of relationships that we want to have with our emotions. Here we want to ask us, How do we want to see ourselves? Developing high emotional intelligence to be able to make better decisions. What are those emotions that we feel we need to work on? What are those relationships that we can see being impacted by our emotions today? And how would we want to create a shift in them? What are those emotional states that you may have already created in your life today? Can you identify them? How many more of those type of states of emotions would you like to create for yourself? Something here that I'd like to share around the concept of happiness and joy. Happiness and joy are not destinations to get to. They are a state to be at. They're not attached to achievements like when I make X, I will be happy. Happiness isn't a reward, it's an emotion. It's a state of being. You're either happy or you're not today. Your happiness is not going to be attached with something that you achieve tomorrow. Happiness lies within. Here, I'd also like to point out that men usually struggle more with this category because they find it hard to be expressive. Now, if that's you, I invite you to take on this exercise. Take some time. It will open up avenues of powerful understanding for yourself, and it will allow release instead of restraint. Here, I'd also invite you to question yourself on your ability to create those positive emotions in your world. Think about if you were able to create all of these happy states of mind at various times in your day, how would that affect your overall personality? How would that affect the way that you show up for yourself and for others? How would that affect your confidence, your attitude? Can you visualize that positive outlook version of yourself if you had better management over, better understanding and better management over your emotions? Purpose. The why in this category is critical. While every category of our life is important, the emotional category is a cornerstone to all of them. Think of all of the successful actors and actresses that we've heard of in the last few years who, despite being successful, wealthy, were unhappy, suffered from depression, suffered from fears, suffered from anxiety. Success in career, finances, or even your intellectual categories are good, but they're meaningless if they do not equate to overall happiness and joy for us. The objective that we all aspire to. This category, the emotional category, will help you attain the joy and happiness that you desire for yourself. And it will have a domino effect, a positive impact on all of the other categories of your life. So, what are the compelling reasons that you can define for your why behind the emotions that you want in your life? What are your motivations behind that vision that you want for yourself? What sort of emotional understanding do you want to demonstrate to those around you, your loved ones, your professional connections, your children? And lastly, let's talk about how do we create a high-level strategy to achieve this vision, which is driven with a well-defined purpose and sits on a solid foundation of premise. All the things that you believe that make you happy, the home, the job, the company, the vehicle, the partner, all of these are just means to the same end, the end of being happy. We're all chasing the same goal and objective in life, which is about being happier. Happy or happier? And that is, as I said, a state of mind, not a destination to get to. Your happiness is not attached to the material assets that you possess. We've just spoken about all these people who had all of these material assets but weren't happy. What was missing in their world? If they had the dream home of their life, if they had the dream career of their life, the dream bank account of their life, why did it not equate to being happy? Why did it drive them to taking action on situations and events and creating events which ended their lives? Why? Let's think about if happiness is your ultimate goal, then under the strategy section for emotions, you want to list down all of the touch points of your life that make you happy versus those that make you unhappy. The people, the places, the things. Now bring your focus and attention to all of the touch points that you listed as those that evoke happiness and joy for you. Put them down on one column. Commit to creating more of it. Commit to doing more of it. Commit to engaging with more of it. Schedule it in. If a dinner date with your partner brings you joy and happiness, brings more joy and happiness into your relationship, schedule it in. Plan it out. It might seem tedious in the beginning. It's a new task that you're putting down on your to-do list. But you will find that your happiness meter will go up every time you do it. Every week you go out on that dinner date, your happiness meter is going to go up. And soon enough, it won't feel like a task anymore. It'll just be something that you do, something that'll become your habit, something that'll become part of your DNA. Now, those that you're listed under the unhappy column, you want to think of ways to avoid them, to replace them, to negate them from your life, because they're not serving your happiness meter, because they're not filling your heart with joy. In fact, they're taking up valuable real estate in your heart and filling it up with negativity, with toxicity. You're inviting that in. Don't invite it in. Don't welcome it. Your happiness is your responsibility. You can only make others happier if you're happy from within. We can't give what we don't have enough of. Not being conscious of our emotions puts us in a regular pattern of negative emotions, which, when not acknowledged, only grow bigger. So every time it comes up bigger and stronger. So here's the choice you've got. Would you rather invest into making your positive emotions bigger and stronger, or the negative ones, which are stealing you of your today and impacting the happiness you can have for yourself and for your loved ones for tomorrow? I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode, and if any of the practices and tools have been helpful along the way. What questions came up for you? Drop me a line down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Tomorrow, we'll be tackling the character category of the life book. Until then, take care and stay awesome.